daughter of a janitor. My daddy sold carpeting and ended up as maintenance man. Our daddy had a lot of different jobs. He sold fencing, he sold carpet, he sold housewares, he sold paint. The baby daughter of a janitor. When I was 21 years old, I got my first job as a special education teacher. I loved that job. And by the end of the first year, I was visibly pregnant. The principal wished me luck and gave my job to someone else. Pregnancy discrimination, you bet. I was married at 19 and then graduated from college actually after I'd married. And my first year post graduation, I worked, it was in a public school system, but I worked with the children with disabilities. I loved that job. And I did that for a year. And by the end of the first year, I was visibly pregnant. And then that summer, I actually didn't have the education courses, so I was on an emergency certificate, it was called. And I went back to graduate school and took a couple of courses in education and said, I don't think this is going to work out for me. By the end of the first year, I was visibly pregnant. So here's how it goes. By the end of the first year, I was visibly pregnant. I was pregnant at the time, wasn't showing yet. And I was pregnant with my first baby. And by the end of the first year, I was visibly pregnant. By the end of my first year in teaching, I was visibly pregnant. And the principal did what principals did in those days. Wished me luck and hired someone else for the job. I had a baby and stayed home for a couple of years. The principal wished me luck and gave my job to someone else. And the principal did what principals did in those days. Wished me luck and hired someone else for the job. Oh, yeah. And the principal did what principals did in those days. Wished me luck and hired someone else for the job. Pregnancy discrimination, you bet. I was waiting tables at 13 and married at 19. Oh, yeah. Yay! I graduated from public schools and taught elementary school. I finished my 4-year diploma. I became a special needs teacher. I have lived my dream job. So this was my first job, and I was teaching, I was going to be a teacher, and I quickly switched over and decided what I wanted to do was work with brain injured children. I was the speech therapist for mostly special needs kids, special education teacher. I worked, it was in a public school system, but I worked with the children with disabilities. I had 4 to 6-year-olds in special ed, and I loved my babies. I loved the work. I loved the kids. I worked well with the parents. I loved this work, and I loved the work. I think I could remember all of their names. I know I remember all of their faces. I loved that job. I did that for a year. And then in the spring of my first year, in April, my contract was renewed for the next year, and I was all set to go. About 2 months later, when I was visibly pregnant, about 6 months along, the principal called me in. And by the end of the first year, I was visibly pregnant. The principal wished me luck and said that he wished me luck, but he'd be more comfortable having someone else in that job, and he was going to hire someone else for the job. And gave my job to someone else. I don't think this is going to work out for me. And that was it. I lost my job. I was married at 19 and then graduated. But I was 21 years old. I didn't have a union to protect me, and I didn't have any federal law on my side. And I was really casting about, thinking, what am I going to do? My husband's view of it was, stay home. You know, we have children, we'll have more children, you'll love this. I can't get a job, what am I gonna do? I'll go to law school. I'm at home, I got a little baby, can't get a job, I gotta do something. So I will go to law school. And I was all set to go. Let me find the world's smallest violin to play a sad, sad song. You know the list, you know the stakes, you know the challenges. Whether we're talking about Donald Trump or we're talking about changing this country, you can't win if you don't fight. And we're in this fight, and we're in it to win.
Donald Trump is the President of the United States.
Oh, yeah.